A man clearing out his late father's sideboard found a canteen of old cutlery, tarnished nearly black, mismatched, a few pieces monogrammed with initials that meant nothing to anyone still living. He assumed it was dark, dated, unusable, and he did what a lot of people do with old silver right now. He looked up the scrap price and got ready to sell it for melt. Here's what stopped him, and what should stop you. Silver is trading above $84 an ounce in 2026, up more than 150% from a year ago. So a heavy sterling set is worth real money by weight alone. And that's exactly the trap, because for valuable patterns by prestigious makers, the collector value can exceed the metal value by 10 to 20 times or more. Melt it and you might get a few $100s. Identify it and the same pile could be worth thousands. That's not a coincidence. The silver didn't become valuable the day someone recognized it. It was always valuable. The value was lost the moment it passed from someone who didn't know what they held to someone who did. And that gap is where almost all the money in the antique silver world lives. Here's the thing about old silverware. It is the single most commonly undervalued thing in an entire house, because it does three things at once that fool people. It tarnishes black so it looks like junk, it comes in bulk so it gets sold in a single lot, and it has a scrap value that tempts people to weigh it instead of read it. Every one of those instincts destroys money. To you, it's a drawer of dark, dated cutlery nobody will use. To a collector, it's a maker, an assay office, a date letter, a pattern, a weight, a set of details that decide whether you're holding melt value or a set worth 10 to 20 times that. The real question isn't whether old silverware is worth money. It's why the valuable pieces stay so cheap in the owner's hands, and who benefits. The answer: knowledge here sits in very few hands. It's rarely volunteered, and a whole resale economy runs on it. So here are 10 old pieces of silverware that ordinary people own without knowing they're worth a fortune. One warning first, and it matters more than anything else. And for silver, there are two halves to it. Do not over-polish, because collectors value the natural patina on antique pieces, and aggressive polishing wears down the very hallmarks that carry the value. And do not melt it, do not sell it for scrap, until you have identified every piece, because the scrap buyer is counting on you seeing weight where a collector sees a maker. The first is the marked sterling piece you were about to sell as plate, and this is where the entire game begins. The difference between sterling and silver plate. A piece marked sterling 925 or 925 is 92.5% pure silver and has real intrinsic value on top of whatever the pattern is worth. A piece marked Eppens EBM A1 or silver on copper is electroplate, a thin silver layer over base metal with essentially no melt value because the silver is too thin to recover economically. People see a big, impressive tray and assume it's precious, or see a plain, heavy fork and assume it's plate, and both can be exactly backwards. So before anything else, find the marks, usually on the back of the stem on flatware and on the underside of the base on hollowware, and separate the sterling from the plate. Flip it over, read the stamp, and don't guess. The next one is where 3 seconds of looking replaces a lifetime of assuming. The second is the English hallmarked piece, and British silver carries the oldest and most detailed marking system in the world, dating to 1300, which means a genuine English piece tells you almost everything if you know how to read the little row of stamps. There are usually 4. The lion passant, a walking lion with a raised paw, guarantees sterling, 92.5%. The assay office mark tells you the city, a leopard's head for London, an anchor for Birmingham, a crown for Sheffield, a castle for Edinburgh. The date letter, a single letter whose font and shield shape pin down the exact year it was assayed. And the maker's mark, the silversmith's initials. Put them together, and a plain old spoon becomes, for example, London sterling, made by a named maker in a specific year. And here's why that matters. A piece of Queen Anne sterling from the early 18th century commands dramatically more than a Victorian reproduction that looks identical to the untrained eye. If you see a figure of Britannia instead of the lion, that's even higher purity, 95.8%, the Britannia standard. The marks are struck on the back of the stem, about a third of the way up from the bowl, and if they're worn, breathe on them like a cold window, and they'll surface. The seller looks at the front of the spoon. The buyer reads the back. If that surprised you, the next is where the maker's name turns metal into a small fortune. The third is the great maker piece, because the silver content sets a floor, but the maker sets the ceiling. A spoon, by a legendary English maker like Paul Storr or Hester Bateman, is worth vastly more than a generic piece of identical weight, and those names are stamped in the maker's mark most people can't be bothered to read. The same is true across the whole field. Georg Jensen, the Danish house founded in 1904, made flatware so revered that pieces are routinely described merely as in the style of Jensen, and his acorn pattern from 1915 and blossom pattern from 1919 are among the most sought-after designs in the market, with the hand-hammered early pieces worth far more than later mass-produced ones. Gorham's Chantilly line, hand-hammered at a higher 958.4 purity, is genuinely museum quality. A spoon that weighs the same as another can be worth 10 times more because of 6 tiny initials. The seller weighs it. The buyer reads the name and pays for the hand that made it. Now, let me say one thing, and then I will not bring it up again. I have gathered this way of looking at things into a book, and the link is down in the description. It is not about silverware in particular. It is about the 5 questions you ask of anything old: what it is made of, who made it, when, whether it is genuine, and what people have actually paid. That is the eye. If you want it, it is there. That is all. Now, back to the silver. The fourth is the American coin silver piece, and this one fools almost everyone, because the American marking system was far looser than the British one. Before sterling became standard in the United States around the 1860s, American silversmiths made pieces from melted down coins, roughly 90% silver, and marked them inconsistently, sometimes just with a maker's name, a place, or the word coin, pure coin, or dollar, sometimes with nothing but a surname. People see an old spoon with a plain worn name stamp and no sterling mark and assume it's plate or junk. It can be early American coin silver, genuinely old and genuinely collectible, and the maker names matter enormously, because a piece traceable to an important early American silversmith is a documented piece of history. Mid-19th century American pieces might simply say sterling beside a company logo like the Gorham anchor or a Tiffany date letter, so the absence of a full British-style hallmark row means nothing about whether the piece matters. You judge American silver by the maker's name, not the number of stamps. The fifth lesson is the one that costs people the most, and with silverware, it is brutal and specific: completeness and the bulk lot. A complete sterling flatware service for 12, with its serving pieces and original canteen, typically runs from $2,000 to over $20,000, and a matched set in a demand pattern brings strong replacement value because pattern-specific buyers pay premiums to complete their own services. But here's the cruel mechanics. The moment silver is inherited, it gets treated as a single anonymous mass. A dealer offers one round number for all the old cutlery, or a family splits the set, keeps the nice serving spoon, donates the rest, sells the odd forks for scrap. Every one of those moves shatters the value, because a broken service is worth a fraction of a complete one, and the individual pieces sold for melt can never be reassembled. This is where the most people lose the most money, not because the silver looked like junk, but because it was disguised inside a fast transaction designed to prevent itemization, and silver is uniquely exposed because it arrives by the drawer load. Grief and exhaustion are the picker's best friends. So the rule, plainly, never sell silver in a bulk lot. Never accept one price for all of it. Separate the sterling from the plate. Photograph every piece, including the marks. Keep the set together with its canteen, and research each pattern and maker separately, because the entire value of a sideboard can sit in one service, or one spoon, nobody recognized. The sixth takes that danger to its most expensive extreme, and it's the piece hiding inside the drawer that's worth more than everything else. The named pattern service, by a prestige American maker, is the sleeper that gets melted constantly. Gorham's Chantilly from 1895, Reed and Barton's Francis I, Tiffany patterns like Chrysanthemum and the Japanese pattern, Wallace, International. These are the names that turn a flatware set from melt value into a collector object. An antique Gorham sterling set in the 1895 Versailles pattern, 72 pieces with no monogram, has been appraised at $5,000 to $7,000, far above its silver weight. And notice that detail, no monogram, because it matters. Heavy monogramming can pull a piece back toward melt value, while a clean, unmonogrammed set in a demand pattern sits at the top. The danger is the estate clear-out, where the whole canteen goes to a scrap buyer who weighs it, pays melt, and resells the good patterns to collectors at 10 times the price. So identify the pattern before anyone weighs anything. The pattern name is the difference between a few $100s and several thousand for the exact same object. The seventh is the piece where value comes not from weight or pattern, but from form and rarity, the scarce object most people don't even recognize as silver worth keeping. Early hand-wrought flatware, apostle spoons with their cast figure finials, caddy spoons, vinaigrettes, wine labels, novelty and architectural forms, tea urns, ewers, oversized presentation trays. These scarce forms and large presentation pieces command premiums that plain flatware never approaches. An apostle spoon, a form dating back centuries, or a Georgian caddy spoon in an unusual shape, is a specialist collecting field in its own right. The tells are the form itself, the hand finishing, the assay marks, and the age. And the trap is that these odd little objects look useless to a modern eye. A strange small spoon, a tiny funnel, a little labeled chain, so they get tossed in a junk drawer or a charity box. To a collector, those odd forms are exactly the rare survivors the plain services are not. The stranger and more specialized the object, the more likely it is that nobody in the house recognized what it was. We've covered sterling versus plate, hallmarks, makers, completeness, and rare forms. And the last three pull it all together, starting with the detail that separates a treasure from a common piece. The eighth is the mark itself. Read closely, because this is the purest form of the information gap, and it's where fakes and misreadings live. A 10x loop turns a blur into a verdict. Continental silver uses different standards most people never learn. A Minerva head for French 950 silver, a crescent and crown for German 800 and above, plain numeric stamps like 800 and 830 on European pieces that are still solid silver despite not saying sterling. Weighted pieces, candlesticks, and some knife handles are filled with pitch or plaster and marked weighted or reinforced, so they're not solid through and shouldn't be valued as if they were. And a sovereign's head mark on British silver, used between 1784 and 1890, tells you a duty tax was paid and helps date the piece. Reading the mark precisely is the whole skill. So when you research, do not look at active listings, the silver for sale, with hopeful asking prices, because anyone can ask any number, and those are fiction. Look at sold listings, what pieces actually changed hands for, and match the exact maker, pattern, assay, and date. Active listings tell you what sellers wish. Sold listings tell you the truth. The ninth is the piece that says silver but isn't, and the maker that got copied, the "it looks the part but read it twice" story running through this whole market. In the United States, a piece marked only silver is not a guaranteed purity mark, and you must find 925 or sterling alongside it to be sure. EPN stands for electroplated nickel silver and contains almost no recoverable silver, despite the reassuring word silver in the name. Nickel silver and German silver contain no silver at all, just an alloy that looks like it. On plated pieces, the high points, the tips of fork tines, the edges of a tray often show base metal bleeding through where the thin silver layer has worn, appearing as warm copper tones or dull gray. And on the maker side, prestigious marks get imitated, so a genuine Jensen carries Georg Jensen, sterling, and a production number together, not just a look-alike stamp. The lesson cuts both ways. A humble-looking piece with a genuine sterling hallmark beats an impressive-looking tray marked EPNs every time. You judge by the actual mark under magnification, not the word your eye wants to read. The 10th is the grail, where every principle compounds and the ceiling disappears, the most extreme version of the central truth, that the value was lost, the moment it passed from someone who knew to someone who didn't. At the very top sit the pieces that look like nothing special in a tarnished drawer. Fine Georgian, Regency, and Irish silver with crisp hallmarks by legendary makers. A Paul Storr or Hester Bateman piece, where the maker's mark alone drives the value into the stratosphere. A complete Tiffany Chrysanthemum or Gorham Chantilly service. Distinctive arts and crafts studio work. A Georg Jensen acorn service with its original documentation, early apostle spoons, and presentation hollowware. And here's what makes silver genuinely different from almost every other category. The object can be 400 years old, hallmarked to the exact year, and the exact maker by a legal system running since 1300, and still be sitting in a sideboard black with tarnish because nobody turned it over. Every lesson converges here. Sterling versus plate, the hallmark and the maker, the pattern and completeness, the rare form, the weight, the warning never to over-polish or melt, and the venue, because where you sell matters as much as what you sell. A rare piece sold to a scrap buyer, or a general house clearance dealer, or a bulk estate buyer, is sold to whoever weighs it, while the person who'll recognize and pay for it is a specialist silver dealer, a replacement pattern buyer, or an auction house with a silver department that reads hallmarks for a living. So here's the checklist that flips you from the person being collected from to the person who knows. Don't over-polish it. Don't melt it. Don't sell it for scrap. Don't split the set. Leave the honest patina where it is. Turn every piece over and read the marks under a loupe, the sterling stamp, the hallmark row, the maker, because the front is only the beginning and the marks on the back are the truth. Separate sterling from plate before anyone weighs anything. Keep the service complete with its canteen and serving pieces. Never sell in a bulk lot. Research on sold listings, not active ones. And when you've found something real, take it to a specialist, not a passerby. If you recognized even one of these, hit the like button and comment below if you've got an old piece of silver you can't identify, especially a tarnished or oddly shaped one, and I'd be happy to take a look. Subscribe if you want the part of the market the resellers already know and won't share. Because the truth under all 10 is simple. These pieces were never worthless. They were built to look like the ones people throw away or melt down, and the only thing standing between you and what they're really worth is knowing. That's not a coincidence either.